In America, the US President-elect Joe Biden has started assembling his team to prepare for taking over the presidency at the end of January. He spent the day appointing members to his coronavirus task force. He said that tackling the pandemic was key to rebuilding the US economy. The current occupant of the Oval Office, President Trump, is still refusing to concede victory to Mr. Biden, despite pressure from a growing number of fellow Republicans, as our North America editor Jon Sopel tells us.
Donald Trump at his rallies repeatedly said that once the election was over, you'd not hear much more about COVID.
COVID. A plane goes down. 500 people dead. They don't talk about it. COVID. By the way, on November 4th, you won't hear about it anymore. It's true. COVID!
Fat chance. There's a fresh infection outbreak at the White House.
Because we follow the science.
With his chief of staff and the person leading the legal fight against the results among those to have gone down with it. 10 million Americans have now been infected.
Wear a mask.
And from the president-elect today, a markedly different message.
It doesn't matter your party, your point of view. We could save tens of thousands of lives if everyone would just wear a mask for the next few months. Not Democrat or Republican lives, American lives.
Shares in the US have soared on news from Pfizer on the vaccine, an announcement welcomed by Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But how the president must have wished it had come 2 weeks ago. The president spent the weekend playing golf, and while we know no more about his future, he today fired his Defence Secretary Mark Esper by tweet. Well, not fired, he was terminated. Donald Trump hasn't spoken on camera since Thursday, probably a record for this presidency. But his close aides are appearing, and to the question, will he concede, this is the answer.
That word's not even in our vocabulary right now. We're going to go and pursue all of these legal means, all of the recount methods. We're going to continue exposing and investigating all these instances of fraud or abuse and make sure, again, that the American public can have full confidence in these elections.
As Donald Trump vows to explore all legal avenues to continue the fight, some around him are beginning to consider another option. It is that he eventually concedes, but then runs again in 2024. It's happened once before. In the late 19th century, President Grover Cleveland lost and fought again and won. With a crane appearing on the skyline today, it's perhaps confirmation that one way or another, Donald Trump is facing removal from the White House. Jon Sopel, BBC News, Washington.
Well, in the past, Joe Biden has made no secret of his opposition to Brexit and to the government's approach to leaving the EU. Mr. Biden has also insisted that the future peace of Northern Ireland cannot, in his words, be a casualty of Brexit. Today, talks between the EU and UK restarted to try to reach a trade deal before the end of the year. Let's talk to our political editor, Laura Kuenssberg at Westminster. Laura, let's start there with events at Westminster. We've been expecting a potentially very significant vote in the House of Lords, which could have a big impact on the government's talks with the EU.
Well, it could do, Huw. And as you say, Joe Biden doesn't much like the way that the government has been pursuing some of its Brexit approach, and neither does the House of Lords, talking tonight angrily, as we can see there, in particular about ministers' plans to give themselves the ability to break international law, to take more control of what happens in Northern Ireland if they can't reach a joint agreement with the European Union. This has been hugely controversial, condemned by lots of people, and the House of Lords is likely to kick it back to the Commons tonight. But number 10 at the moment is sticking by its view that these are necessary parts of what has to be put in law to be in there. They would even say to safeguard the Union and the peace process in Northern Ireland if a wider agreement can't be sorted out with the EU.
And meanwhile, as we mentioned, the talks are up and running again. Michel Barnier in town today. How are they going?
Well, you're right. That controversy in the House of Lords tonight and in Joe Biden's brain is part of a wider jigsaw of what's going on here. Michel Barnier and his officials have come to London again this week. They'll be locked in a room with UK negotiators for the next few days. And given that we are meant to be leaving the status quo that we've been in since we actually left the European Union at the end of December, it doesn't take a genius to get out a calendar and look at the fact that time is running out here. But the talks are still stumbling over familiar issues. What is a fair share of fish for fishermen at home and abroad? How does the EU and the UK share rules and regulations to do business with each other at the end of the transition period at the end of next month? There is a sense that in the next week or perhaps 10 days, there's going to have to be some kind of conclusion to this if there's a chance of actually having, at the beginning of January, something that looks like a smooth, significant change to how things work, or perhaps risk the process falling into something more chaotic.
Laura, many thanks again. Laura Kuenssberg there with the latest at Westminster.